Welcome to the shop. Not every woodworking project has to turn out to be a piece of heirloom furniture. Some projects should be made just for the simple fun of making the project and the fun they provide when the project is finished. That's one of these projects. It can be made with scrap materials and some glue. It can be made with traditional woodworking tools, but this thing is begging for a CNC. So let's get to it. I never recommend running the CNC without a dust boot, but I wanted to show you what we're doing here. We're creating the dividers between each of the rows and then punching out the holes in between. The CNC excels at this. You could do it with a hole saw, and there's other tricks, but that thing really does work good for it. And here again, using that oscillating tool, it works the best for cutting tabs. You'll want to sand those off smooth with the edge of the surface when they're done. Here I'm cutting out the front plate. And you could do this instead of cutting the entire thing on the CNC. You could just cut out the holes, the grid pattern for the holes, and then a little later in the video I'm going to show you how you would assemble it using that file to create the front and the back of the grid. Be sure and sand the rough edges in between the holes there. There's minimal tear out with this thing, but you still want to sand it to make it nice and smooth. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is why the CNC excels at creating the dividing bars and the holes in the grid pattern all at once. As you can see here, the grid and the bars that divide the holes are perfectly aligned with the CNC. Makes it easy to make this sandwich, put the thing together, and have everything spaced correctly. Here I'm doing a dry clamping just to make sure everything is going to line up. We'll put a bunch of clamps all the way around it, confirm that everything is correct, and then we'll apply the glue. And then I'm going to show you a little fixture I made to align both halves. And you're going to want to do something very near and dear to that so that you get everything aligned correctly. Because once it's in place, if it doesn't work, you're going to have to start over again with the grids. I shouldn't say if it doesn't work, if it's not in alignment. So here's the alignment fixture I was talking about. 2 pieces of unistrut that I squeezed over the whole thing with the long bar clamps to make sure that it was touching top and bottom, flat surfaces. Then we're going to apply glue down each one of those dividing bars, and then we'll put the clamps back on. We'll put the top back on, and then we'll apply the clamps. As you can see underneath the bottom there, I've got 2 sticks going across that's holding the bottom up off of the bench. Alright, everything's right and tight. We're going to add some glue down these strips. Each one gets one line, obviously. But you want to make sure you get it right up to the edge because you don't want the top to separate. The center opening a little bit is probably going to be unnoticeable, but those ends, those edges, if they open, that's going to be a definite problem over time. Glue's on. Let's put the top portion of the grid back in place, and as you can see, the unistruts help line everything up. It takes a little bit to push that in, but that ensures that those things are in line. All the holes are in line, top and bottom are in line, and if you have to tap left and right, you can. But as you can see running the fingers there, I'm satisfied with it, and we'll start throwing these clamps back on all the way around. Once the clamps are in place on 2 sides, then I can remove the fixture. I'm confident that the thing is not going to slide out of alignment. And then we can go all the way around with the clamps like we did before. And happy days, we can move on to the next step. I forgot to mention that the sticks underneath give you space for the clamps. And also, I wanted to put some weight in the center of that thing to make sure that I was squeezing the center of the grid. As you can see here, I really didn't have any weights, so some C-clamps and some unistrut, pushing down on those sticks underneath, good to go. I'm not going to bore you with more CNC action here, but all of those pieces were cut on the CNC, and those files will be available to folks that are members of CNC with me. I've got toolpath files for all of them. So basically, we cut the sides out on the CNC. I've done all the math calculations for the grooves and the slots, putting some glue on here. The bottom was also cut out on the CNC to create the channel that you can see off the picture there on the right-hand side. We'll put the glue down, we'll put the bottom on, and this was meant to be a simple box. We're not doing crazy mitered corners and all of that stuff. This is square butt joints. The bottom will hold everything together. It's plenty strong enough. Once we have all the glue on in place and all over our fingers, then we'll take the bottom and put it on the top of this square cat litter pan, as I call it, and then we'll drive some finished nails through to hold it all in place until the glue dries. Lining everything up as best we can to make sure it's smooth, and later you'll take it to the sander and smooth all of the edges so that everything is uniform and together with no visible differences in the connection. It'll be flush, in other words. And there we have the box. You can go first.
Okay.
This gotta be high speed. Oh, you're cheating. Cheaters never prosper. It's your turn. No calculating. I'm not going to allow you to win.
I won.
That was cheating. It was my turn.
No, it wasn't.
That was cheating. Pull it out of there. We start over. All right, everybody. Let's talk about some chip options. These guys right here. We're going to let Lisa talk about the chips.
Let's talk about some chip options. You can 3D print them if you have a 3D printer. You could also buy some fender washers that you may have to glue together to make them a 1/4 inch thick.
Otherwise, when you put them down through the slot, they might bypass each other because this opening is a 1/4 inch. Those things are roughly a 1/16, so they might go past. So you might have to glue multiples together so that they're thick enough.
You can also purchase a pre-made 1.5 inch dowel and cut them into 1/4 inch slices and then color them to your desired color. You could also make an epoxy board and cut out the chips with the CNC with me file that we will put in the description below.
It's a chip file to cut out
Correct.
chips. Yep.
Yep.
Correct. Thanks for making sure I'm correct.
You can use the chip file and cut out the HDPE sheets.
Yep. Correct.
Correct. You could also buy some poker chips from the
Amazon
Jungle Store.
Oh, that's right. We're calling it the Jungle Store.
The Jungle Store. And they have all different colors that you can purchase for about $15. You could also purchase these little things that are already pre-made.
They're on the Jungle
They're
Store
little
too.
dowels. Or little, not dowels. What
Discs.
are they? Discs. I'm sorry. You could use a PVC pipe and cut them into 1/4 inch thick
donuts, for lack of a better term, and
correct.
backfill the donut with whatever color you wanted your chip to be with a white border on the outside. You're doing good. Keep going.
I guess that's all I've got for it. So now I'll turn it over to you.
But there's many, many other options. It's just a matter of what your imagination can come up with to make these discs. They just need to be a 1/4 inch thick by 1.5 inches in diameter, and you'd be all set. Now, let's talk about some things about these Connect 4 games in general. Let's move this one back just a little bit so I can bring in this one. This one was my practice piece. Give us a little help if you can in the comments below. We're looking to figure out what's the best way to lock these slides or these grids in this box for carrying, because if you're carrying them around and your child picks it up the wrong way, it's going to fall out and all of the stuff inside your chips and everything will fall out. So we're looking for, let's call it a classy way of locking these things in instead of driving a nail in here and bending the nail over. I would never do that. I'm just kidding. But we're looking for a way. Please put it in the comments, an idea for keeping these things in the box. And I did make a mistake, a couple of mistakes, and the golden rule in the Hinkle shop is when we make a mistake, we always show you. So here's one mistake. If you can see that in the camera, these holes are misaligned. Going back to the beginning of the video, or earlier in the video where I showed you the alignment fixture, that is what prompted that. Because putting the two sides together, I did not get it the way I wanted it in alignment. So I highly recommend you use some sort of an alignment fixture to get it right. Secondly, when I made the design for the box, this is a pocket, that's a pocket, this is a pocket to raise the center portion. Just so your chips and stuff don't slide back and forth. You can actually store the chips in here or leave them in there while you're playing. But the mistake I made was right here. You can see that opening. That was a through dado, and it should have been a stop dado. I have corrected that in the files for CNC with me. You can see I made a stop dado there. So that's fixed in the files. That'll be correct. Now, I did cut this all out in plywood. That's all this is a 3/4 inch piece of plywood from the big box stores. If you do decide to cut it out and use the file that creates the channels as well as the holes, you'll use a 1/2 inch piece for the back plywood and a 1/4 inch piece for the front. If you choose, and there's going to be multiple files on the CNC with me website for those that are in the organization, and I'll leave a link below so that you can join that join that organization and benefit from all the things that are over there. Now, if you choose to do just a front and a back, you'll use a specific file that cuts out just the front plate for 1/4 inch sides, and you can do that for just the holes, and then you can create dividers, and I'll show you that a little bit later on in the video, how you put that together and how you go about doing that. Let's talk about some hold down options. You can use the traditional blue tape and CA glue. You can use double-sided tape. My preferred method lately has been to oversize the stock. Let me back up just a little bit. Put down an auxiliary piece of MDF on the top of your wasteboard, much larger than the material that you're going to be cutting in. I'm calling it an auxiliary piece. And then oversizing your stock more than what it says in the files, oversizing it and putting a screw in each corner and holding it down. You are assured then that it's never going to move. It's right where it needs to be. And then when you go to remove the piece from the mill, it's easily removed. There's no prying loose. There's no trying to get underneath it with a wedge or a bar to get it off of the table. You can also, with the 1/4 inch thick pieces, same process, but use finishing nails in the corners. If your mill runs into one of those finishing nails, it's not going to hurt a thing. It'll blast right through them and you'll be fine. But I can't stress enough, if you choose the CA glue trick and the double-sided tape trick with these little thin pieces of wood after you've punched 1,000 holes in it, be very, very careful taking it off the machine or you could break them. And if you break them, obviously you got to start over again. Now, the beauty of this project is it uses 1 bit from the 3 bits in the CNC with me files, and it's the 1/4 inch downtown Jenny. That bit cuts out the holes, it cuts out the profiles, it cuts out the pockets. There's no need to change to another bit. We're using the old keep it simple, stupid thing here. So 1/4 inch downtown Jenny, and you can make yourself one of these very, very easily. As I said in the beginning of the video, you wouldn't necessarily need a CNC, pardon me, but if you have the CNC and you're watching this and you're a member of CNC with me, this thing is a great project to make with your CNC. Very simple. Now, we didn't go and put any crazy mitered corners in this thing. Again, keeping it very simple. These are block corners, square corners, and then the base will keep it nice and strong. And I think I mentioned that earlier in the video, but I wanted to say it one more time. So, finishing options. You can finish these things with anything that you'd like to finish them with. Polyurethane, any oils. You can go to the crazy extent of using some extremely expensive finishes. I'm not going to mention those here, but I don't recommend it. This is a simple toy, a simple game for your family to have fun with. Keep it simple, stupid. Use the most basic finishes. Sand between coats so it's nice and smooth. You don't want children to get slivers from them. Having said that, take a roundover bit in your router and go around all edges that you can get to with the roundover. I think that one's a 1/16 inch radius. Here I'm showing you if you make a mark where your stock was and you zeroed with the touch probe, you can put your next piece in right exactly in the same spot and you don't have to re-zero again. As I said earlier, taking the nail gun into the corners to hold this piece down, and here I'm demonstrating just using the thin material to cut the holes with, the whole grid pattern, not the grooves and the slots. In the next little bit here I'll show you how we put that together right now. CA glue along the little slats that you cut out with your table saw to the correct width. Run a nice bead down them. Then you're going to put the first one on right along the edge of the stock, being very careful not to stick the wood to your fingers. Make it longer than the grid pattern so it sticks off on both ends. Hold it in place the 10 seconds or whatever it's required to make it stay still. Again, use the table saw to cut yourself the center pieces. Now I put little dabs of glue on them. I didn't run one straight bead down, but you can. And I lined up those dots in between the holes. Spraying the activator on the grid. And I also cut myself some spacers here so that I could put each one of these in, know they were straight, and know they were at the right width. Hold them down and yank the spacer out so you don't glue the spacer down by accident. And just move your way along across the whole board, with each side sticking out past the grid. Once you've got that complete, you're going to take your orbital tool, or your multi-tool I mean, and you're going to cut off the tails off the ends of those little sticks. Once you've gone all the way around that grid and cut them off all flush, then you're going to take the other piece, the other grid pattern with all the holes in it, and you're going to put them on the top and make the sandwich just like we did in the beginning, where the CNC cut out the grooves and created the channels for you. Again, highly recommend using a alignment tool. This is how I got the piece out of alignment, by not putting them together with an alignment tool. I just set the one on top of the other and did my best to hold it still, and that did not work. I almost forgot to tell you there's a second instructor that's entered the fold with CNC with me, and that's Greg over at STL Woodworks. Go over there and check out his channel. He's got a great tool hanger that he started with the first video with CNC with me with, and he's going to be putting out some exciting videos going forward, just like we are here at the Hinkle Shop. So check out Greg over at STL Woodworks and CNC with me. Other than that, we're glad that you took the time to be with us today. We hope you learned something. We hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember, you don't have to CNC alone. You can CNC with me and her. And with that, we'll catch you on the next one.